welcome to the Women in Industry podcast. My name is Kirsty Davies-Chinnock, and today I'm joined by Alex Elborn from Intergage Marketing, or Intergage Engineers. They've got a variety of brands that they use, and they brand themselves as the marketing agency for technical and manufacturing sectors. They focus on return on investment, and they work with their customers to generate a real return to the bottom line. They're powered by technology, and they've got a flexible in-house team with 20 years experience, and they have a total focus on the technical and manufacturing sectors. So welcome, Alex. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And firstly, congratulations, because you've just been promoted to the Marketing and Operations Director, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I've been at Intergage for about 7 years now, I think. So started in sales, then went to the delivery team. Now I'm the marketer for the agency. So yeah, it's been a bit of a journey, I would say, but it's been a complete pleasure to be promoted to the board. Yeah, it's a really exciting time, definitely.
And are you the youngest person on the board?
I am, yes, I am the youngest person on the board, which is really exciting. I think it's really nice to work for a company that really does invest in its people. And I think, I think if I was to give any advice to anybody looking to get into industry or into marketing, it would definitely be choose an employer that invests in its people. I think, as an agency, we've got a lot of people that have been with us for a really long time, so it definitely says something about us as an employer. And again, that's something definitely to look for an employer as well, is how long do people stay at the company you're looking to move to. It's definitely something to look at.
I agree completely, and it's nice to see a company doing something a bit different, looking towards the younger generation,
Yeah.
and getting them to sort of really have an input. I had coffee with one of your co-directors last week. We met at the NEC, and he actually said to me that out of all the marketing professionals he's ever worked with, you are by far the best one.
Oh, that's so kind. That's really nice. No, I've got a great job because
Uh,
it's a real pleasure being a marketer that gets to work in an agency with lots of other marketers, and I'm appreciate that. I'm very fortunate to have that, and I know that there are a lot of marketers out there who work as a one person team, and the rest of the business don't necessarily buy into marketing, which can be a real challenge in itself. And I think that's one of the reasons why we set up the Marketers in Manufacturing Leaders Forum. So it's just a bit of a forum, a bit of a LinkedIn group, so that marketers in the manufacturing industry can kind of come together, share ideas, sometimes share frustrations, and in a really nice kind of peer-to-peer, non-competing way. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why we set that group up, just because I know I'm very fortunate, but I know there are lots of marketers out there who don't have the pleasure of being surrounded by other marketers every day.
Well, the podcast, of course, is called Women in Industry, and we focused on a fairly heavy industry. And a lot of people would say, why are you talking to somebody in marketing? But your whole business, your whole USP is the fact that your customers are industrial customers, the
Yeah.
manufacturers, engineers, and companies who work within that sector. Um, and obviously, lots of companies will specialize, but it's quite strange when you look at a sector that's quite often quite traditional. And as you've just said, there might only be one marketer in the company, and they might have to sort of struggle a bit to get their peers in that industry to understand why they're trying to do it. And we can move quite slowly in manufacturing. We can move very fast, but we can move quite slowly. And it's the return on investment
Yeah.
that's always the important bit, because the majority of us are SMEs.
Yeah.
Um, So it will be the MD or the sales manager or the production manager or somebody who will do marketing as well as. So what made Intergage decide to specialise in that area?
So we've got, I would say, quite a rich history of working with manufacturers and companies in the that service the manufacturing industry as well. And I think, that experience that we have is quite unique, I would say, in a marketing agency. There aren't that many that specialize in industry. I think something that we really enjoy as well is the kind of the complexities of manufacturing and the fact that manufacturing as a whole is kind of the lifeblood of the UK really, and that's something that we always promote through our own marketing efforts. And I think, seeing that there are so many nuances to manufacturing, and I think manufacturing is something that people often forget that everybody touches every single day. So, everything from the components in my laptop that we're using right now, right through to the casing that I can see on your microphone. People don't think about the fact that every single component of each of those things has been manufactured in some way, shape, or form. So there's so much opportunity in manufacturing. There's so many really interesting things to talk about. And yes, it is an industry that is traditionally seen as quite traditional. I would say I would agree with you with that. But at the same time, with manufacturing moving into the digital space more and more, I think it's becoming increasingly important that manufacturers also look at their marketing in the digital space as well, and not just looking at it in the digital space, but also kind of humanizing that as well. So I think that answers your question. It's a very there's a lot going on in manufacturing, and I think we have the opportunity to help manufacturers at one stage in the pipeline, or the pipeline, I would say, to then help other manufacturers kind of later down the line of that process. So it's for us, it's just about helping an industry that we see as the lifeblood of the UK, really.
And obviously, the more you've done it and worked with different manufacturers, the more you'll get better at knowing what they need, knowing what an SME in a plastic industry will need compared to an SME in components or castings or something else. That there is going to be a similarity over nearly all industrial
Yeah.
SMEs, but then they will split down into quite defined areas. Do you
Yeah.
see any sort of similarities that crop up time and time again, or any
Um,
challenges that crop up time and time again?
I think so. I think there are lots of challenges that we see time and time again, but I would say, that every manufacturing business is obviously different. So, in some manufacturing businesses, you might have, for example, a sales and marketing team that aren't talking to each other at all. So it's, for that manufacturing business, it's less about how can we pour more leads in at the top, and it's more about, okay, so how can we bring the two teams together and make them work together in a way that means you can close more business from the leads that you're already generating. For other manufacturing businesses, it might be that they've got a brilliant sales and marketing process, and actually just one part of the sales and marketing production line is broken. So that might be a website, or it might be that they're doing an exhibition and they have no idea how to kind of present themselves. I think quite often with manufacturers, it's kind of going right down, right back to the start and kind of figuring out who is it that you really do want to target, because manufacturing is a really big space, and quite often I think manufacturers tend to it can be easy to make that really broad, but actually what we need to do is kind of understand, who do you work best with? How can we get more of those people into kind of your sphere of existence? And how can we make you magnetic to those people? So what can we find out about those people? What can we use from your existing database of customers to make you really magnetic to the audience that you want to get? So I think, yeah, it's there's definitely challenges that we see across the manufacturing sector, but also each one is very, very different, which is why we kind of take on that very bespoke way of thinking with each and every manufacturer that we work with.
I think one of the things that is both a win, and then it turns into not a negative, but issues is most SMEs, you start up, you might have two machines and
Yeah,
you sell the capacity for those and you employ some people. And then you buy another machine and you sell the capacity for that and you employ some more people. And you do that and you grow quite organically, because there are very, very few companies that are started by somebody sitting down and going, I've got 20 million quid.
yeah,
I'm going to buy a
absolutely.
bespoke factory. I'm going to have it set out. And it is very much start, grow, plateau, start, grow, plateau. And,
Yeah,
and you,
I think
you just sort of keep doing that.
I
So
think a
when
lot
you've
of it
got
comes
years
from,
under your belt,
yeah, I think a lot of it often comes from somebody trying to solve a problem as well. It's like you say, it's never somebody sat there with X amount of money in the bank thinking I want to start a manufacturing business. It's always born from trying to solve a very specific problem in that larger production line. And I think going back to what you asked before about why manufacturing, I think as marketers, we're always trying to find ways of solving a very specific problem. And I think that's why we align ourselves so well with manufacturing, because at every stage of that production line, there's always problems to solve. And that's often where manufacturing businesses are born. It's trying to solve a problem, whether that be, a component for aerospace or, um, you know, polishing metal to produce brilliant surfaces. It's different at every stage, and I think that's one of the reasons why we're a curious bunch at Intergage, and I think that's what makes us great marketers, and that's what makes us a great fit for the manufacturing sector.
I think when you work with a company that um, has a specific skill set and focuses it on a niche area, you've got one of two things that can happen. You can either end up repeating yourself, or you can end up becoming more creative.
Yeah.
Um, when you're on site and working with a team, how do you see that moment when people go sort of they find what they want to do with that project, their creative juices start flowing? What's the energy like with everybody when you're working with them?
That's a really interesting question. I think it's different for every customer. So we have quite a specific process that we take manufacturers through. And while we do all of the traditional agency stuff like SEO, lead generation, etc., what we also tend to do is try and bridge the gap between our customers and their customers to help them really close that gap between who they want to sell to and who wants to buy from them. So that might be interviewing their existing customers to find out what their buying process is like. It might be looking at their existing data to figure out which parts of the sectors they work with are best for them. It might be holding a sales messaging workshop, or bringing their sales and marketing team together to align and kind of put the cogs in place for that sales and marketing machine to really start whirring. So I think it really depends on where the focus is and kind of where that journey takes us. But I think for us, it's using data to understand how we can bring our customers closer to their customers. And quite often it's really taking things back to basics. And so often we look at data, or we look at existing messaging, or we interview customers, and we start to understand things that from an outside perspective might look really obvious, but from an inside perspective, because you're working in the business every single day, sometimes you take for granted what a really great selling point for your business is because you deal with it every day. So I think for us, it's about having that outside in perspective. And so often in those meetings and those workshops, we see the light bulb go on in somebody's head and they think, actually, you're right, that is why we're great as a business. Why aren't we talking about that? Or, yes, we've got this solution and it's hidden away in a box over there because we never really thought about it being a solution for this thing over here. So it's really interesting to see when those creative juices get flowing and what those light bulb moments look like because as an agency, I think what we're really great at is kind of shining a light in the dark places for other people's businesses. And that's where you get those creative moments and those aha moments almost where, we see our clients think, yes, you're right, that's great. Why aren't we talking about that? Or why have we never positioned it that way? Or, we've got this offering, why are we not talking about it more? So, like I said, it's different for every business, but I think quite often it's taking things right back to basics and having that outside in perspective that you just can't get from working in your business all day, every day.
I think one of the interesting things about marketing and using external people to sort of shine a light in your business and look at things is that, as just described beautifully, the commonplace that we do that all the time. You don't see it as a USP. You don't see it as differentiating yourself from the
Yeah.
competition because it's not a big thing. And it's recognizing those big things that you go, oh, we always do that. We always do that. But it's recognizing that actually that really can be a great selling tool or
Yeah.
a way to market your business. And I think for those of us who are a lot older than you, I sort of remember the 80s and marketing was the new buzzword, the new career, and you could go and earn a fortune and live in
Making
London and
shiny
New York.
brochures.
Yeah, and then it all sort of got a bit of a Prince's New Clothes, sort of type of reputation. No, the Emperor's New Clothes. I demoted him in the royalty. So, and everybody sort of like thought the bubble had burst a bit. And then everyone realised that they were actually now doing some level of marketing.
Yeah.
Even if it was just having a brochure, even if it was then getting your first website, having an email address, going to an exhibition. And we sort of realised that we were doing it, but a lot of it is piecemeal. So I am an SME. So let's pretend I don't have a marketing strategy.
Okay.
What would be the first three things for me as an SME that I should have in my marketing toolkit? Very, very basic. So I've just set up my new business. I'm making components for aerospace, and I'm going to be an owner manager with two other members in the team. And together we're going to do have three things in our marketing toolkit. What should they be?
Okay, so the first thing must be a CRM, so customer relationship management system, I think, because if you can get that right at the very start, you're setting yourself up for success and you're future-proofing your business as it grows. And the reason I say that is because it's so important for sales, marketing, C-suite operations to have that centralized system that allows you to understand what's going on with the customer, when the last communication was, how much they're spending, what they've bought in the past, because all of that information allows you to build up a picture of that customer so that you get better insights of what they might be interested in, what content they're reading, but also you're then able to provide your customers and your prospects with a better experience because you understand them better, you've got all their data in one place, and as a team, you can really surround that customer and that prospect then with the relevant content. We are a HubSpot platinum solutions partner, I would always recommend HubSpot as an initial CRM. The CRM is free to use initially, so it's a great tool for small businesses that are then going to grow and become, medium to large size businesses. So definitely a CRM for one. I think number two, I would say probably interviewing your existing customers, because no matter how well you think you know your existing customers, it's always a brilliant idea to ask them questions, not necessarily about you as a business, but about them and their buying journey. So where do they go for information? When they're looking for a supplier like you, what questions do they need answering? Who's involved in the buying process? What accreditations do they look for? What do they like and dislike in a potential supplier? Because just doing those interviews kind of upfront when you win a customer or later down the line can bring you so much information that you can't get it online. You can't get it from ChatGPT. Asking your customers those questions is so valuable. So that's definitely step two. I think step three is a really difficult one, because you kind of have to base it off the back of what those interviews say. But obviously a website is very, very important, and it's kind of the basis of any, if you're going to set up a business, having a website is absolutely crucial. And if you can link it to your CRM, which is obviously step one, I would definitely recommend doing that, because it just provides you, the insights that you need to understand how your customers are using your content, what content they're enjoying, how they're opening emails, how they're interacting with you as a business. So yeah, I would say CRM, customer interviews, and probably website, I think, yeah, in terms of tools.
And as we look forward, technology changes so quickly. So, a website somebody had 5 years ago to one they'd have today is going to be completely different. Not only the look, the images, what people see as new now or old fashioned for back then, but also the technology on what it's based,
Yeah.
how it's built, whether it's coded, whether it's point and click, something like a GoDaddy site, or
Yeah.
whether it's a building block website where you can go in and make real-time adjustments. Where do you think the next change will be technology-wise, purely for marketing SMEs?
Technology wise, I think it's probably going back to what I said before, and kind of joining that CRM and website together to bring one system together. And I think it's looking at all of your systems across the business: ops, finance, sales, marketing, and kind of bringing them together, because you might not think that marketing needs all of that information, but it's so valuable to understand the entire lifespan of a customer. So, once you've brought the lead in and sales has sold something to that lead, what happens to them afterwards? Because if marketing don't know that, it then becomes really difficult to bring together those sales messages that, demonstrate why you're so great to work with. And yeah, I think it's just it's not really necessarily marketing, it's bringing all of the systems together in one place if you can, so that the people who are promoting your business and putting on that face for everybody else to see have visibility of what happens to a customer once they're sold to. And I think that's so often lost in lots of different businesses, not just manufacturing. I think, sales and marketing are quite often siphoned off over here as part of the business, and maybe they don't talk enough to operations and finance and vice versa. So there's kind of a silo of sales and marketing over here who don't then end up getting visibility of what happens to a customer at the end, and getting that feedback, and understanding what can be improved, how can we adjust our sales and marketing so that it really does reflect who we are as a business. So yeah.
There is nothing worse, is there, for someone contacting you or you contacting them, and then you buying something from them, a product or a service, and then 6 weeks or 6 months later, you get a cold email or a cold DM from somebody else going, "Hi, we're Joe Blogs,
Yeah,
marketing service here," or whatever it happens to be. "Can we tell you all about our service?" And you go, "I'm a customer,"
yeah,
because
that's
that does
definitely not a good
happen.
look.
I,
It's
I get
definitely not
that
a good
about
look.
once a year, and it really irritates me.
Well,
You
it's
might have
bad
a million
because
customers, I might just be one, but there's no need not to have a system that means that you're not coming out to me and not valuing me as a client.
yeah, that's
Because
exactly
by
it.
contacting me to say, "Do you want to be a client?" when I already am,
Yeah,
I'm feeling very unloved by that email.
I think that's it, and
Um,
it's like I said, it's not just beneficial to you as a business to have that system, but it's enabling you to provide the best possible experience at every single touch point for your prospects and customers. So yeah, totally agree. It's definitely not a good look.
one final question, and I asked this for most of my guests so far, apart from when I forget, but I've remembered. Um, what is the best piece of advice that you've ever been given?
Ooh. Oh, that's a really difficult one. I get lots of advice, which is always really helpful. I think in a marketing sense or just in general.
Just in general?
I think probably I think this goes around quite a lot, but I would say kind of trust the process of whatever you're doing. I think I sometimes can be quite an impatient person, and if something's not going right, I'll think, right, what do we need to change? But actually, sometimes you do need to trust the process that you're going through and kind of understand that sometimes you have to slow things right down to allow everything to fall into place, and that will obviously then put you in a better position. I think sometimes, especially in today's world where everything moves so quickly, technology is changing all the time. Social media, you can look at it 1 second, look at it a second later, and it's something completely different. So it's really easy to try and keep up with all of that. And I think sometimes actually what you need to do is focus on, okay, what do I want to achieve? Let's just focus on that. Slow things right down until you've got to where you need to be with that, and then pick the next thing up. I think it's really easy to try and spin loads and loads of plates, but I think slow things down, trust the process, and just focus on what you want to achieve instead of I need to generate leads over here, I need to be on every single social media platform, I need a new website every 3 years, I need this many leads every single month. And actually quite often trying to do all of that is too much, and actually what you need to do is just focus on what are my 1, 2, 3 main objectives for the next 12 months. Let's just focus on those, slow everything else down, and trust that process. So yeah.
Trust that process. Well, thank you so much, Alex, for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. And hopefully, lots of people will take your advice on setting up a free CRM system, and generate lots more leads themselves. Thank you
Fingers
so
crossed. Yeah,
much.
thank you for having me.